All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing guest with me today, amazing warrior, Dotty Scott. And I'll introduce her to you in just a quick second. But first, let's talk about why we're here with Warrior versus Zombie and what we're about. So, success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point and provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors from all walks of life, aspiring leaders that are entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value and a vision that goes generations into the future, and today's guest is no exception. Dotty Scott is an awesome warrior. She's a mother, an entrepreneur, business owner, web designer, social media expert, speaker, and trainer. And her 16-year warrior journey in business has seen growth every year. That's impressive, including over 35% growth in 2020. I thought 2020 was supposed to be the year everything tanked, right? So Dotty is an award-winning website designer. Her company, Premium Websites LLC, has been awarded the top 25 web hosting and design companies by the Vancouver Business Journal for the last 10 years. Dotty treats every customer as an individual, believing there is no cookie cutter answers or generic websites, or company doesn't build them. She goes the extra mile to make sure every client is happy and loves to teach small business owners how to get from where they are to where they want to be. Dotty's courses are at askdotty.com, where she teaches small business owners what they need to market their business online. When not working, Dotty loves nature, photography, camping, and hiking. Dotty Scott, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to have you. And before we got started here, and as we met, the beauty of this whole platform and doing it this way is you're in Washington, and actually Vancouver, Washington. And when I first saw Vancouver, I had a flashback of a 14-month stint commuting to Vancouver, British Columbia, but then later learned that you're on the Washington side, but a little bit of contrast there. So how's your world today? I saw you getting warmed up there. So, it's 2 hours earlier than it is here in Dallas, but so tell me a little bit about what you're dealing with today or for this holiday season. By the way, I'm kind of festive today. It's like I got Santa on here. It says, ask your mom if I'm real. So I'm getting ready to go to a party here in Dallas. So any contrast with your world?
Well, we are getting ready to actually have a white Christmas, which doesn't happen too often here in Vancouver. So yeah, we're expecting snow on Christmas and I'll be ready for it.
Well, I have to say that when it comes to that, I lived in Michigan for 18 years, and the white Christmas was a regular thing there. I think they're predicting 80 degrees on Christmas here in Dallas this year, which isn't always the case. It can get cold, but snow is not a regular thing. So I do miss seeing it. It does not. I grew up, and experienced quite a few white Christmases, not in Michigan, but in Kansas City, where I grew up. So we did have snow frequently or relatively often, but so yeah, it doesn't here in Texas. It really doesn't necessarily always feel like Christmas when you look outside. But I'm trying to get festive anyway. So
Well, you're doing a good job of that.
So the world there in Washington State, I know, is a little different. We talked about that versus here in terms of the aspects of our life. Yeah, our life. So we're doing Christmas parties and having all the family together here and all that stuff. And I know other parts. I think in your part of the world, they're discouraging most of that. Is that true still?
Yeah, they're discouraging gatherings. And if you do gather, they're saying get tested before you go, get tested after you get done, and all of that kind of stuff. So, we're just kind of hanging here by ourselves this Christmas.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I know, a lot of times this time of year can be kind of depressing. I know, last year around the Christmas time, not being able to even here in Texas, not really having as much opportunity to get everybody together and stuff was kind of frustrating
Mhm.
and sad in a lot of respects. So I'm excited that we have that opportunity this year. We didn't do I run a large networking group. We didn't do a large holiday mixer or anything like that last year because of the zombie apocalypse, as I say. But this year we did, and I was um, excited that we had a really good turnout and had a lot of fun, and now I'm getting all my family together. So not really trying to say this to make you jealous. It is there is we all are warriors, right? Getting through the various things. So anything else going on in your world? I think we're going to do a little quick break here, and then I really want to get in, Dottie, to hearing and having you share your story of how you got from where you started on your warrior journey to today. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break, hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright for our audio audience. And It's Not the Getting There, our theme song. And then we'll be right back with Dottie Scott and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back. Dottie, that was a quick break. I know for those watching the replay, you're going, that wasn't much of a break. But anyway, so as I said before, we took a little pause there. Tell me how you got from where you started, whatever you want to define that to be, and to today.
Well, it has been quite a journey. I started not necessarily with the same goals that I have today. When I started, I had like a little side hustle. I was working a regular job, part-time, and starting to build websites on the side. And things happened where I was working, and I call it the Good Old Boys Club. I'll never be part of the Good Old Boys Club. And basically, I quit my job, and I told my boss what I was doing, and he looked at me and he said, Dottie, you'll never make it. It is too hard to start a business and make a living on your own. You are an employee. And I waved at him. I said goodbye and walked out the door. There's a lot more to that story, but we don't need to get into it. So when I started my business, it was to have an extra income, to be able to afford to go on vacations, to fund my and my partner's retirement accounts, and just extra money kind of a thing. Well, a month after I jumped in feet first and quit my job, then he lost his job, and he never really got a really great job again. I mean, he was the one paying all the bills. So all of a sudden it was like, okay, I have to ramp up and really do an actual business. Whereas before, really in my mind, it was a hobby. And so it was a put your feet in the fire and run type of a thing. And I totally would never ever recommend anybody do this, because it was highly stressful, but we made it through. The first years were really rough, and I learned a ton of stuff, and all to do with marketing and running a business and what to do, what not to do, all of that stuff. And I share it with my customers. It's like, okay, well, I tried that. Here's what happened for me. maybe we can tweak it and it'll have a different result for you, that kind of stuff. But yeah, my journey was scary.
So scary in regards to, one of the things is you said a couple of things there, and so far in your journey that's interesting to me. One is that you had people outside of yourself telling you that you weren't going to make it.
Mhm.
That basically, and sometimes those are the people that it's as warriors. We now, this is episode 55. I've heard a lot of stories. Sometimes it's the people that are closest to us, or maybe even people that we've seen as trusted advisors, mentors. I mean, that's why I think a lot of times you are the product of the people you surround yourself with. And I think it's kind of brilliant and also inspiring that you stepped out. And the scary part of that is if we don't go forward as warriors, realizing that we are going to experience both challenge, the scariness, and support, people encouraging us, and we don't realize that that's a reality that none of us will escape on the journey. That we're in for a rough ride. So I think a lot of times we have maybe a vision of things going, and that's good to have the vision. The challenge is that the journey is always going to have rough patches and things, and it sounds like you experienced that. What other challenges or things did you overcome to get to where you are today? It's obviously there was learning, there's a lot of experience, you dealt with some scary times, some people not necessarily being as supportive. So tell me a little bit more about how you got from where you are to today.
Well, I started off being not so much a people person, and I've really changed that. I've grown a lot in that aspect. I started with a local networking group here, and they met twice a day. There was like, I don't know, 50 chapters in the Vancouver, Portland area. And the rules were, if there was nobody else doing what you did, if you were a member, you could go to any of the meetings. So my job that I quit started at like 11 or so in the morning. And so every morning I would go to a networking meeting, and I would force myself to be able to meet people I didn't know, because I was in a community I didn't grow up in. We actually had just moved there. I didn't know anybody when I jumped into this. So I didn't have the support of other business owners that could help me along. And that's why I joined that networking group, which was probably one of the best things that I did. The other thing that it taught me was I could get up in front of a small group of people and actually say something. I was not a public speaker. The first time I did that, my voice was shaking. I was scared to death, and there was maybe 10 people in the room. So, so that has been a big growth as well, or change or learning experience, whatever you want to call that. So now it doesn't freak me out quite so much. And I'm able to get my message across to people in ways that they can understand and relate to. As far as some of the other challenges I've had, you probably, well, you say you have a lot of women in your life as far as your family goes. So maybe you will have at least experienced this through them. I've had people along the way that will call me up and want a website, and I go to meet with them, and they're like, well, I want to work with a man. It's like, well, you called me, and the last time I looked, I don't know any men named Dotty. Well, can you refer me to a man that does what you do? And the very first time this happened to me, because it's been more than once, I actually was friends with a guy who did what I did. And I called him up right after that meeting. I'm like, would you want to work with this person? He goes, no, why would I want to work with somebody that is like that? But So, he was left in the wind, but, I've had that sort of an adversity all
Mhm,
along, to where people, for whatever reason, I'm in the STEM field, if you
mhm,
want to call it that. They do in schools anyway. And it's dominated by men.
mhm.
And I'm here to tell all of the women out there, all of the girls in high school, that women can do this better than men. Because not only can we learn the skills, but we can relate to people on a level that most of the guys that I know that do my job can't. So I just want to throw that out there. So if you're thinking about getting into any of the STEM sciences fields, computer science, anything, you can do that.
Yeah, I think that there's always stereotypes, and being a father of four daughters, and also have four granddaughters, and
Oh, no grandsons either?
I have a grandson and a son. So in
Okay.
fact, my son is going to be here today, so I'm excited about that. Interestingly enough, my number two daughter and my number one daughter, I mean, very technically savvy, very, and, like I said, it's, I think it, people who have those kind of predisposed points of view, I would actually argue that women control 95% of the decision making. And in my world of swimming in a pool of estrogen, I'm used to admiring and appreciating and serving the female contingent in my world. So I would never
Yeah.
say, is there a guy that does this? In fact, I know it's not in vogue today, but I don't tend to look at um, people's genitalia or the color of their skin to make decisions on how to do business or what kind of relationship to have. I have a local networking group. By the way, I'm excited to hear your story, and I've heard that over and over and over again with a group of 1,750 local people circulating through our network here
Mhm.
in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Your story is very real and very common in terms of realizing that it's people and those relationships and building relationships with people like and trust that we really build our business and our ability to have an impact on.
Mhm.
So that's great. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Let's come right back because I want to hear, why you're doing what you're doing today and unique value. I've already heard one of those, that you can relate to women and others that may want to come in. You have an experience there. And that's also very common with warriors. A lot of times we learn things on our warrior journey that we take forward so that we can serve, and that unique value is added to other people. So I've heard that already a little bit in your story. And then, what kind of impact, if anything were possible, what would your ideal day look like going forward? And then we'll go into the last segment after that. So let's take another quick break. We'll come back and hear Dottie's why, reason, and her value and where she's headed after this quick break, and hear a little more of Ricky Jean Wright. All right, we're back. And Dottie, that was an interesting story. I've heard a little of that before in terms of just warriors that have walked that path, but it's always good to know. And I really appreciate your encouragement. I have a lot of women that listen to this podcast, including my daughters and other people. And so I'm really, I really like the encouragement. Anything is possible. I mean, I say, if anything
It
were
really is.
possible, what kind of impact would you have? And that's not determined by your sex or your race or anything else. I mean, to me, that comes from my source, which happens to be the Bible, which basically says all things are possible. And so I believe that it doesn't matter where you came from. And in fact, that can be a big holdback for people, is their experiences in their past. And but tell us a little bit about why you're doing what you're doing today, the unique value you provide. If anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have?
Well, one of the reasons that I do what I do is because in my industry, there seems to be a lot of, I call it fraud. You can call it whatever you want. Here's an example, and this was early on. I had a friend that I met through networking hire me to fix her website. She already had one that was working. And the problem was it wasn't being found online at all. And when I asked, I knew the person that created this site. And when I looked at it, nothing had been done as far as search engine optimization goes to the site. So it's a technical thing, nothing was done with it. And I went back and I asked him, this should just be part of building a website. I mean, I'm not talking about all the extra stuff you do outside of the site. I'm talking about just what's on the website. And his response to me was, well, she didn't pay for that. She just paid for having it up. And this was like within my first year. And at that point, I was like, okay, that doesn't work for me. If I was a business owner, which I am, and I hired somebody to build me a website, I would think I would get everything that's included with building a website, which would be, at least in the beginning, it's going to be optimized with the information provided. And so that's what I do. I do as much as I can with optimization when I create a website. And the reason I do that is because I think it's fair and the right thing to do. And that's just one example of literally hundreds of things that I have found other people doing in my industry that they're just not right. And that was one of the big reasons why I started my Ask Dotty education platform. Is because, sure, if you're a do-it-yourself or business owner, you can learn how to do some of this stuff yourself. But the real reason is I want business owners to have enough information about whatever the topic is that they can decide, hey, this is really cool, I'll do it myself. Or, you know what? Not my wheel frame. I want to outsource that to somebody. But the problem is, a lot of times when you outsource it and you get the project back, you paid for it, it's done, and then it's no better. Like whatever the situation was, you haven't gotten any improvement on it. And then you'll come to somebody like me and I'll look at, I'm like, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do this, they didn't do this. And they're like, well, I paid for that. Well, they didn't do it. So a lot of times people will pay for things, they think they have it done and they don't, it just wasn't done. And I want business owners to have enough knowledge on whatever that topic is to be able to tell if they outsource something that, yes, it actually did get done and they actually did what they paid for. Because I'm telling you, in this industry, there is a lot of, again, what I call fraud, to where you pay for something, you think it's done, and it really isn't. So that's just one thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big thing. I mean, again, the ability, there's a thing that you say, and I know you learned in networking and in doing business, is people do business and should do business, by the way, with people they know, like, and trust. I think the trust component of that is so important. And so many entrepreneurs, so many business owners don't realize that it's the little things like that. It's I remember I don't even remember the business, but the whole concept of an educated buyer is our best customer. I mean, the thing is I think that's true really in all businesses, especially if you're focused on impact and sustainability, is building that trust and educating those who you ultimately want to have a business relationship with. Well, let me ask you this, so I kind of get the value. I understand the experience and, why you're doing it to make that journey a little smoother for business owners and stuff. What kind of today, what kind of impact are you striving to have? I know you're doing your Ask Dotty, you're educating folks in that space. I know you're in the Be Connected community. What, if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you like to have?
I just want women to know that they can have a control on their destiny. They don't have to be trapped in whatever situation they're in, that they can take the reins and they can create their own reality. You said in my introduction, 35% growth in 2020. Well, I haven't figured out the percentage yet, but I'm telling you, 2021 is the best year I've ever had in my business, in spite of or because of COVID. I don't know if it's in spite of or because of, but if you put your mind to it and you have a reason, then you can do it.
Wow. Well, that's actually a very powerful aspiration, and I agree with you. And to be honest with you, in spite of, because of, really doesn't matter. The reality of it is that when you're looking outside yourself, as I always say, we have many entrepreneurs that are really wantrepreneurs, because entrepreneurism, no matter, regardless again of where you're starting or where you are and what you are, is simply overcoming obstacles. I mean, there's always obstacles. There's always things that are on our way, but we see them many times as in the way. And it's whether it's COVID, whether it's, snow, you can come up with an excuse that I'm a woman, that I'm a man, that I'm this, that I'm that. We can all come up with excuses. And I always tell my clients, you can own your excuse, or you can own the positive results, but you can't have both. You can either make an excuse for why you're not achieving it and get comfortable in that, or you could just say, hey, I walked away from my job. They told me I couldn't do this, but I did it anyway. Hey, COVID said you can't get out of you have to stay in your house and you can't go anywhere. Oh, well, let's figure out how to do networking using Zoom. I mean, there's just so many ways around and over and through obstacles. So, well, let's do this. Let's take another quick break. I want to come back and I want to bring it to a head, land the plane, as I often say. And what I want to hear in the next segment is if we take away, and you've already kind of given me a couple of these, so it's okay to repeat, but if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you want us to take away? And then I want to hear how we stay in touch with you and all. And after you kind of shared that, then we'll answer that final question, and then we'll land the plane. So with that, let's take another quick break. We'll be back with Dotty Scott and Warrior versus Zombie. All right, we are back, and Dotty, wow, these always go so fast.
Yes, that has been fast.
It has been fast, and I really appreciate you sharing. I really appreciate your heart, your desire to see everybody move forward and know the right way to do that, not be taken advantage of, and all those things. But as I said before the break, if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you like us to take away?
Well, in addition to everything else that I've already said, I would say that if you have a really clear vision of what you want, and you really understand why you want it, that you can get it. It's not mystery. It's not woo-woo, but it is something that is completely obtainable. Write down your goals. I want to share. I've always had my goals in my head. Every year, every January, think about what I'm doing in my business, all that. This year, I actually wrote them down, and I looked at them, and I followed them. And as I said, best year I've ever had. Could be one of the big reasons is that I actually wrote those goals down this year. So I will be doing that. Another thing that I do that I encourage everybody to do in January, I go through my books for the previous year, and I track in my books where everybody comes from. Was it networking? Was it a random person off the internet? Was it a referral from a customer? Those types of things. And because I want to know what's working and what's not. And then I focus on what's working.
Awesome. Well, actually, you actually hit a lot of stuff in that. There was a couple of points there, but really you covered a lot of ground, because having a vision is something that people need to recognize. And the other thing you said is writing it down, because my vision challenge, that's one of the things that I tell people, just write it down, don't qualify it, don't whatever, write it down, get that clarity. And then the other thing you said, which is absolutely brilliant, is that, you're kind of tracking it on a day-to-day basis. It is a journey every day, as the theme song to this podcast says. It's not a destination. It's basically, we're moving forward every day. So let me ask you this. So how do we, I know a couple ways, but tell the audience, how do we stay in touch? How can we circle back to continuing a relationship with Dotty Scott?
Well, I am part of the Be Connected community. So if you want to connect with me there, I've got a couple of bit.ly links on my background there that you can check out my group. And I too have a show here. And then if you want a free gift of some simple SEO hacks that you can do to your own on your own, and these are very simple for yourself, there's a free download at my website at askdotty.com. So you're welcome to grab that. And then my contact is on my websites. So you can go ahead and call or email or send me a form, whatever you want to do.
Excellent. Yes, I appreciate Dotty and I connected through the Be Connected platform ourselves. It's an amazing community. It's a very early innovator stage, so you can get in on the ground floor, but the thing is, you have to be invited. So whether you're invited by Dotty or myself or somebody else that's already on the platform, we're a very intentional group. It's free to join, but that doesn't mean we want just anybody and everybody there. We all get enough spam, enough unintentional noise in our system, and having thousands of connections on all the other platforms. I can say that I'm at this place in my journey specifically, and Dotty and I are here together for that reason. And I'm looking forward to continuing a relationship with her, and so hopefully you'll do the same. Let's do this.
I want to say something about Be Connected.
Sure, go ahead.
And there's probably some women out there that would really resonate with this.
Okay.
So one of the things I love about Be Connected is that everybody is there for business. I have not had one person reach out to me wanting to go on a date. On Facebook, I have that daily, and I hate it. So if you are in that situation on Facebook and the people that are approaching you are like, no way, and go away, you won't get that on Be Connected.
Yeah, and I love that too, Dotty. People aren't reaching out to me for dates on a regular basis. However, what they do reach out for is, I get no less than 35 requests to meet a day on LinkedIn and other platforms. And, I get that, but it's hard to, make any kind of path forward with that noise. And so that's the thing. That's one of the things that I do love, is its invitation only. There's a scoring system where we can kind of score interactions, so you can't be a troll or a misbehavior in any way, and really survive on the platform. So I do love that. So, well, I appreciate again, Dottie. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with the audience. I'm sure that there's some folks out there that would like to have somebody with your integrity to take a look at their website, or to get to know better and see how we can partner and serve. And that's kind of what it's all about, right? So with that, let's hear the final segment. We'll be back next Thursday with another episode at 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. your time, if you're in Dottie's time zone, with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And let's hear the final segment of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright.